Your turn, Yugi boy.
What is up, guys? This is Lintheo coming at you a discussion today about the meta format, and is this one of the most open formats that we're going to have for a while? So after the adjust list that hit Pepe quite considerably, it has restricted on certain plays that the deck might make, and it certainly isn't as powerful as it once was. But it kind of opens up the question, which is the best deck of the format? Now, I don't think it's actually a straight answer. Most people will probably say it's either Cosmos or Monarchs, and while they are some of the best decks, I don't believe they are at the level that Pepe was coming into this format. I don't believe they are single-handedly going to win everything. There are so many good decks out there that people can kind of think, you know what, I might give this a go at major tournaments. The big two, as I said, are Cosmos and Monarchs. Cosmos are pretty consistent in the fact that they can summon their big ships, and obviously Cosmo Dark Destroyer is a very, very powerful card. Being able to just summon itself, pop something, and then be able to just sit there with a big attack and not being able to target it. Then you have Monarchs. Monarchs being able to swarm the board fairly quickly, being able to summon out some pretty reliable monsters in the fact of Vanity's Fiend and also Majesty's Fiend, as well as obviously your big two guys. If you can lock down your opponent with the field spell from not being able to allow your opponent to use their extra deck, that's kind of very big. Now obviously with the deck there are certain elements of bricking. Field spell isn't exactly difficult to remove now that Twin Twister is a thing, and a lot of people will be playing it at 3 in the deck. But personally, I don't think those two decks are enough to hold the format to ransom. We still have Pepe, we still have Magicians that are still a very good deck that can compete for the top tier. Then you'll have a lot of other non-meta decks that can actually rise up a little bit. We've just had the Raid Raptors and the Super Quantum Monster archetype released in the most recent Wing Raiders set. And those two are very interesting decks. Now, do I think that they will be top tier and they will be Pepe-esque? No, obviously not. But they are actually pretty interesting and enough to captivate you in the fact that Super Quantums can just summon a big ass boss monster and really shut you down very quickly. It's not actually that difficult to do, but it can be inconsistent. Then you have the Wing Raiders that have a lot of support for them, and also some pretty decent monsters in Force Strix being able to beef up its attack and search out one of the cards. And then one interesting one, I forget its name, it's a level 1, you can just tribute it to bring out an Xyz, but it dies at the end. But then you can just overlay it with your Wing Raider Xyzs. Like, that's pretty good. Obviously there are certain limitations on it. You can't special summon or something for the turn, or you can't use other effects. Your opponent doesn't take any damage. I think that's the other effect, but it's still pretty decent. But then if you think of other decks that can rival the big ones, you also have Mermels. Mermels are a very good deck that can swarm the board, that can take cards out of your hand with Moulin Glacier, and just with Nept Abyss, it's kind of a lot more consistent now. You also have other decks like Despots that are surprisingly very good. If you don't know how to play against Despots and you go up against them and the actual duelist is pretty good, you might be in a slight bit of trouble. Then you even have things like Magispectors. Magispectors are still, I think, a pretty good deck, and the fact that you can't target or destroy any of them by card effects is, you know, pretty solid. Magispectors suffered from being completely outclassed by Pepe. It kind of blows my mind a little bit that a deck that you can't target their monsters or destroy them by card effects is not an actual good deck or played by people. But I actually think it's pretty decent. They have a good amount of support, and you know, things like Kyrian and such are very problematic cards that they can use. One of the cheapest decks that people can use is Kaijus, and Kaijus are such an annoying deck to deal with. I actually quite like the archetype and quite like the mechanic that they use, but I believe that you don't really want to go up against them if you aren't equipped for it. Now, the slight problem that Kaijus have is simply that because Mega Monarchs are such a big deck right now, people are really into it, everyone is basically siding Massacre Restrict unless you're actually playing the deck. And that really hurts Kaijus in the fact that you can't tribute them. Yang Zing is also still a pretty decent one. Regardless of if you use pure Yang Zing or Zephyr Yang Zing, they are explosive and can be very annoying. Zephyr Yang Zing is obviously the more explosive one. Being able to just pendulum out so much stuff is quite scary, as well as the pure version being able to use a lot of floodgates and lock you down in a bit of a slower way with big boss monsters that can't be targeted or destroyed or anything like that, depending on which ones you use. I really think that this format is really wide open. I don't think we're going to see constant decks in the top tiers. I don't think we're just going to see wipeouts that we might have seen with Pepe. And I think it's a really interesting format for the creative side of the duelists. We all have some form of creative side, I'm sure, regardless of if you net deck or if you make your own. It's still a really interesting way to see which you want to go with it, because duelists have to think, which is actually the best deck for me this format. I'm quite excited to just see how this format goes. I just want the Forbidden Unlimited list out of the way, just so we know what other cards we might be able to use and what other archetypes might get a bit of a boost from a certain card coming back, who knows. But it's going to be very, very fun to see what will happen. So I want to know what you guys think of this format. Do you think it is as open as I am making it out to be, or do you just think Cosmo, Mermel, and Monarchs are just going to kind of take it? So as I said, let me know down in the comment section below. Make sure to give me a like, comment, subscribe. Let me know which deck you think is going to be the best this format, and which non-meta deck might actually be a good shout. So as I said, comment down there, and I shall see you guys later.